I declare this meeting open at 7:01 p.m. and welcome everyone to this public meeting. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person here today. It is my prayer that as elected representatives, we speak respectfully and consider the needs of all current and future residents, as well as the impacts on the environment in which we live. Tonight, I would appreciate it if everyone present in this room allows us to make decisions free of interjections, so that we can make the best possible decisions for the community. In particular, I would like to call out a few rules and expectations. We will have one person speaking at a time. Councillors will signal to me their interest and I will invite each of them to speak when appropriate. The public has a right to attend this meeting as an observer. However, members of the public gallery are to observe in silence so as to allow the councillors to focus on decision making. As per clause 5.31 of the Code of Meeting Practice, this council meeting is being recorded and it is being made available live via the council website. Only councillors and staff will be shown on camera. For the councillors participating in this meeting, I would also ask them under clause 5.30 to refrain from making potentially defamatory statements. 4. Clause 2.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice outlines a principle for all meeting attendees to treat each other with respect and to behave in a way that contributes to the orderly conduct of the meeting. In particular for councillors, this means that their speeches and questions should remain on topic and genuinely focused on exploring the issue at hand rather than on casting other councillors or members of the public in bad light. As Chair, I will be ruling speeches and questions as out of order if I believe that what is being said is not consistent with our meeting principles in clause 2.1. If any councillor would like to raise a point of order as per clause 15.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice, I ask that they turn on their mic and say point of order. I will then pause the timer and allow the councillor to raise their concern before I rule on whether it is a valid point of order. Council may close part of the meeting to deal with certain confidential matters in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act. These discussions will not be open to the public or the press and will not be webcast. Now, in terms of apologies, we've got one from Councillor Spencer. He is not feeling well, so I seek a motion to accept the apologies and grant leave of absence. All those in favour, that is unanimous. Any apologies by staff?
Mr. Mayor, I have an apology from the Director of Community who is on leave, and she's replaced by the Manager Community Development, who is acting in her role this evening.
All right, thank you. Now, are there any conflict of interest declarations from the councillors? Councillor Wheatley?
Yeah, I have a non-pecuniary with Pymble Ladies College. I have 3 children who have attended there and currently still at the school, and one of my daughters has received a sports scholarship many years ago, but I just wanted to make that known so that if there was a donation that was made throughout this, I would need to probably, well, I'm going to choose to leave.
Okay, so non-pecuniary, non-significant conflict, potential perceived conflict for NM6, but based on NM6, what's printed, there is no.
Just never know.
At this point. Okay, so are there any other declarations? No. Are there any declarations of interest by staff?
Mr. Mayor, there are no declarations from staff.
Okay, documents. Are there any documents circulated in the councillors' papers to be dealt with at the appropriate time during the meeting?
There are, Mr. Mayor. There is a mayoral minute on housing policy updates. There are also 3 responses to questions with notice. Question 1 is about what is Council's position on environmental issues at the North Turramurra Recreation Area, and if leased, will the lessee be legally responsible? The response to question with notice 2 is about Norman Griffiths Oval, and the response to question with notice 3 is about stranded heritage items in transport-oriented development precincts.
Okay. And now, are there any reports to be considered in a closed meeting and not released to the press and public?
There is, Mr Mayor, there is item C1, Ku-ring-gai Hub project status update.
All right, so we are seeking a motion for these reports to remain confidential. All those in favour, that is unanimous. Can I please get a motion to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Lemon. All those in favour, that is unanimous. All right, we're up to mayoral minutes. So the first one is Valet John Crummell, the former artistic director of Marion Street Theatre. It is my sad duty to inform my councillor colleagues and the community of the death of one of Ku-ring-gai's cultural leaders. John Crummell was the artistic director of the Marion Street Theatre Company for two vital periods in the 1980s and 1990s. He was the theatre company's longest-serving, best-known and most successful leader, and played a major role in restructuring the theatre's finances at this time. John Crummell was born in Broken Hill in 1943, and soon after his family moved to Wagga Wagga. It was during his childhood that John decided he wanted to be an actor, becoming fascinated by the actor Charles Laughton at the age of 9. After leaving school, John Crummell enrolled in the National Institute of Dramatic Art, NIDA, in 1962. He appeared in his first play in 1968, performing a memorable role as a Vietnam veteran, haunted by his wartime experiences. In the same year, he became one of the leading actors in the plays Boys in the Band, which ran for 2 years, despite attracting controversy at the time. By the mid-1970s, John had moved to Melbourne, and it was there he gained valuable experience under his mentor, John Sumner, on running a subsidised theatre. He also spent time in Brisbane, learning how to direct plays, and was subsequently invited to become the Queensland Theatre Company's resident director. In 1982, John Crummell became artistic director of Marion Street Theatre, and the theatre quickly became popular with North Shore residents for attracting actors such as Googie Withers and Tony Sheldon, as well as providing opportunities for recent NIDA graduates and local talent such as Georgie Parker. Marion Street also became known for the quality of its plays, hosting productions by writers as varied as Eugene O'Neill and Alan Ayckbourn. John Crummell first left the theatre after 9 years as its manager in 1990, with over 5,000 subscribers and a healthy bank balance. 5 years later, he was recalled to the restructure of the theatre's finances to prevent its collapse. The HIH Insurance Company eventually became the theatre's main sponsor, funding Marion Street for 3 years. Despite suffering a stroke, John Crummell still managed to lead the theatre for 4 more years until the collapse of HIH Insurance in 2001. John was an extraordinary actor, director and theatre manager, and his work was well recognised by his peers through several awards. Despite the financial obstacles and his own health challenges, John Crummell was devoted to giving the Ku-ring-gai community high-quality live theatre. His influence on generations of actors is still felt today. So on behalf of the council and our community, I offer sincere condolences to John Crummell's family and friends. May he rest in peace. So the recommendation here is that the mayoral minute be received and noted, that we stand for a minute's silence to honour John Crummell, and that the mayor write to John Crummell's family and encloses a copy of the mayoral minute. Before we vote on it, I'd like to see if anyone would like to speak on this matter. So if not, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So we will now have a minute's silence. Councillors, we are now up to Mayoral Minute 2, which is the housing policy updates for May 2024. This Mayoral Minute provides an update on local activity regarding the state government's housing policies since the extraordinary meeting of 8th of May. As resolved at the extraordinary meeting, Council has commenced studies around the 4 transport-oriented development precincts of Gordon, Killara, Linfield and Roseville to explore better resident outcomes than what was imposed on 13th of May. The studies, scenario analysis and community engagement will be presented before councillors within 9 months for decision, noting that this is already more compressed than the timeframes recommended by the Department for amending a local environment plan. It is hoped that the scenarios will support the protection of key heritage conservation areas while improving urban canopy outcomes. At the same extraordinary meeting, Council also resolved to commence proceedings in the New South Wales Land and Environment Court concerning the TOD provisions in the housing SEP. This is not our preferred course of action, but has become necessary due to the circumstances. More information will be provided as it becomes available. The TOD precincts commenced on 13th of May and impact 23 of Ku-ring-gai's heritage conservation areas, and they are the Gordondale Estate, Roberts Grants, Gordon Park Estate, Macintosh, Ansel Grant, St John's Avenue, Gordon Park, Yarrabah Avenue, Robert Street and Khartoum Avenue, Green-Gate Estate, Springdale, Crown Blocks, Linwood Avenue, Marion Street, Stanhope Road, Oliver Grant, Blenheim Road, Wolseley Road, Balfour Street and the Highfield Road Conservation Area, Linfield West and the Francis Street Conservation Area, Trafalgar Avenue, Middle Harbour Road, Clanville Conservation Area and the Grove Conservation Area, as well as Lord Street, Bancroft Avenue Conservation Area. So that's 23 heritage conservation areas that are impacted. As for the resident responses within the TOD precincts, councillors have heard reports which typically fall within 4 categories. 1, there are some residents who are receiving unsolicited and unwelcomed correspondence from developers seeking to acquire their property. 2, there are other residents who have come together to seek sale of a consolidated site. 3, we have some residents living in heritage listed items who are concerned of being surrounded by 22-metre high developments and the implications this has for light, amenity and privacy. An answer to their concerns will be provided as part of question with notice number 3 later tonight. And 4, we have residents on the fringe of the 400-metre circle asking why their properties were excluded from the TOD when their neighbours in the same street block have been included. To this, I would say that the state government's site selection is based on a fixed circle rather than a detailed attempt at planning the best outcome for each suburb. As of 13th of May, landowners have been able to lodge development applications within the TOD precincts, though none have been received to date. Yesterday, the Ku-ring-gai Planning Panel considered a planning proposal for 345 Pacific Highway to be redeveloped at heights of 12 to 15 stories and FSR ranging 3.5 to 1 to 4.5 to 1. We do not yet know the outcome of this matter, as the independent panel has deferred the matter to Wednesday 22nd of May. But I do note that any uplift at this key site could give Council the opportunity to synthetically decrease uplift in the heritage conservation area. The matter will likely come before us at the June ordinary meeting of Council. Yesterday, I was also invited to attend the parliamentary inquiry on the development of the transport-oriented development program. The transcripts will become available on Hansard, and the committee report will be produced by 27th of September 2024. The state government intends to implement low and mid-rise housing reforms to support the National Housing Accord, which commences 1st of July 2024. The government has asked Ku-ring-gai whether it accepts the proposed centres under the proposed controls, and this will be considered by Council as part of GB 11 tonight. So the recommendation is that Council notes and receives the mayoral minute. Are there any speakers on this item? If not, let's put this to a vote. So all those in favour, that is unanimous. We now have petitions, of which some are included in the business papers. We've got Councillor Barbara Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a petition from residents of Gordon, and I quote, "We, the undersigned, hereby support the establishment of one-way traffic flow on Carton Lane and urge Ku-ring-gai Council to consider and approve this request by concerned citizens of the area." There are 9 signatures. I move that this petition be received and referred to the appropriate officer of the council for noting in action.
So moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So, thank you, Councillor Ward. Next, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 petitions tonight. Firstly, Roseville Ward councillors have received a petition from Hayley Pentiment to establish a safe pedestrian footpath on Winchester Avenue, Linfield, as printed in the business paper. The final tally for the petition is 109 signatures of support, which I think is pretty big for a footpath. Council staff have the electronic copy of the petition, and I'd like to move a motion that we receive a note petition and submit it to the relevant council officer for consideration.
So moved by Councillor Alec Taylor, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
And secondly, thank you. Secondly, we have received a petition from Scott Savage of Support Linfield to please vote against terminating the Linfield Village Hub project and in favour of negotiating with tender finalists. The petition has over 1,000 signatures collected in just 2 weeks. Council staff also have electronic copies of this petition, and I'd like to move a motion that we receive a note petition and submit it to the relevant council officer for consideration.
So that's moved by Councillor Alec Taylor, seconded by Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Are there any other petitions? If not, I would like to invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they would like to have a site inspection for. No? Can I please ask a councillor to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate? So, Councillor Lennon, your light is on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the following items without debate. First of all, item GB1, concerning the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting in March.
Do you want to do it in a block or just one at a time?
Right, okay, well, GB2, GB4, GB5, GB6, GB7, GB8, GB9, GB10 and C1.
Okay, would anyone like to withdraw any of those? No? So if not, then let's put that to a vote. So moved by Councillor Lennon, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so are there any other items that you would like to move without debate? Councillor Greg Taylor.
I'd like to move NM5 without debate also.
Okay, so NM5, and that is the optimising the management of natural turf sporting fields to enable increased usage. So moved by Councillor Greg Taylor, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So NM5. Are there any other items? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move NN6. However, I just have a change in date.
Okay, sure. So can you provide us an update?
Instead of the May June date, it will now be in October.
Okay. So the date of the event has changed,
Yes.
but points A, B, and C don't mention the date, so they remain the same. So, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Anyone withdrawing? No? If not, then let's put to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So NM6 is done. Any other items? If not, we'll move now on to general business. So as per rules of debate. Now, I would like to move GB3. So can I please ask the staff to pull out GB3, the Youth Advisory Committee? And we have a 3-point motion, which I will begin to read out while the staff look for it for the screen. So I move the following 3 points. A, that in the lead up to the update of Council's Community Strategic Plan in 2025, Council commences extensive consultation with local young people, including a forum to identify youth needs and establish a 5-year action plan. B, that Council endorse the terms of reference in Attachment A1 and commence the Youth Advisory Committee with a short first term through to December 2025. And C, that following the Youth Consultation and Action Plan, Council review its approach to the Youth Advisory Committee and other supporting initiatives, then update the committee's terms of reference prior to seeking members for its second term starting January 2026. So those are the 3 points. My intention is to move a procedural motion so that we can vote for each point separately, so in seriatim. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Ward. I may do the procedural motion now. Oh, actually, I'll speak to it first. So, look, a while earlier on this year, we put up a notice of motion to establish a youth advisory committee, and this was in order to help us listen to part of the demographic that makes up a big part of Ku-ring-gai, at least a quarter of our population, but don't have as much of a voice in the policy and procedures that govern our council. Now, the moment we said Youth Advisory Committee, a lot of various youth have contacted us since then and expressed their excitement, but as part of that notice of motion, we also asked the council staff to talk to other councils who have a committee or don't have a committee and ask them about what their best practice and learnings are from reaching out to the youth. And it's clear from what you've read that there are councils with youth advisory committees or youth councils. There is value in having these committees, but the value is mixed depending on how it's implemented and the people who are on the committee. A lot of councils and organisations have also noted that it's not one single bullet. It's not like you have a youth committee and then all of a sudden the world is a better place. It needs to be supported by a range of initiatives. So instead of talking to just 10 or 15 youth, you need to talk to a lot more youth to seek their ideas and what they care about. And there may be specific projects that different youth may want to engage in. So what point A does is it establishes this program where there are different youth engagement strategies, including a forum, so that a lot of our youth in Ku-ring-gai can be reached out to, engaged, and their opinions sought in the lead up to our community strategic plan being revised next year. Points B and C talk about having the Youth Advisory Committee starting now, but the first term of what's being proposed will finish at the end of next year. So it will be less than the usual 2-year term, but it gives us the opportunity to get something started, start getting learnings, and also for us to learn from what we can through our engagement in point A to have an even better committee from 2026 onwards. So there's just 3 points here, A, B, and C. I understand that there are councillors here with different opinions of which ones should happen, which ones shouldn't. So I would be proposing that we vote on this in seriatim. Councillor Ward as seconder, do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I reserve my vote.
Okay. If there are no other speakers, we might not even do this in seriatim. I'm tempted to just move the whole thing, all 3 points. So let's put this to a vote. So points A, B, and C, all those in favour? That is unanimous. All right. Okay, next up is notices of motion. Our first one is NM1, Marion Street Theatre and Linfield Library. So Councillor
Mayor, what about
Simon Lennon, it's your...
GB11?
Oh, any other GB items? Oh, GB11, sorry. I got ahead of myself. Okay, GB11, Councillor Alec Taylor, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The staff have this motion, I believe, with points A through F. And I suspect that it might be worth reading this motion out for people watching at home. I'll start doing that now while we're pulling it up, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
So we move that Council A acknowledges the important role for each LGA to play its part in the National Housing Accord and agrees that there should be increased density around transport hubs and shops. However, we also believe that the current proposal for the low and mid-rise housing provisions will not create the best outcomes for our future residents and the environment. Point B, that Council requests a 12-month deferral of the low and mid-rise housing SEP from the Department upon agreeing reasonable 5-year and 20-year new dwelling targets as implied by the SEP. The targets will form the basis of an update to its local environment plan over 12 months with the intent to match state policy objectives while providing a superior and more environmentally sensitive outcome for future residents. Point C includes the town centres and associated stations in Council's LEP update with the proviso of planning for additional essential infrastructure. Point D proposes changes to the non-refusal standards for dual occupancies if we are not given a deferral to be minimum site area 600 square metres and maximum floor space ratio of 0.5 to 1 in writing to the department. This will better assist Greater Sydney in achieving the state's target of 40% urban tree canopy by 2036. Point E notes that in its 28th of November 2023 media release, the Department of Planning stated that if a local government's planning rules match or go further than this new New South Wales government policy, the state government changes will not apply. And point F endorses the exclusion of all town centres and stations from the low and mid-rise housing policy as discussed in this report, the late item GB11, and specified in attachment A3 the feedback form, station and town centre precinct selections, and attachment A4, feedback form, bushfire, flood and other hazards.
So that is moved by Councillor Alec Taylor, seconded by Councillor Greg Taylor. Okay. Councillor Alec Taylor.
Okay. Thank you. So most people in Ku-ring-gai understand there's a housing crisis and that we need to play a part in addressing it. They understand that we need to grow, but we need density done well. And we need the proper planning and infrastructure to support it. Tonight we are requesting a 12-month deferral from the state government for the low and mid-rise housing SEP. That would give us time to do the appropriate, locally focused planning with a bare minimum of community consultation to grow Ku-ring-gai with density done well. Tonight, we're also acknowledging that some of that density should centre on the existing town centres that already have some of the transport, services and infrastructure to support growth. However, we're asking the state government to reconsider the dual occupancy component of the low and mid-rise housing SEP, not just for Ku-ring-gai, but for all of New South Wales, as it will have a disastrous impact on the tree canopy across the state. We need density done well in Ku-ring-gai and across the state. The state government has repeatedly said that we could do our own planning. It's time for them to make good on that promise and give us 12 months to do the minimum required to do it properly for our community.
So Councillor Greg Taylor as seconder of the motion.
I'll keep this very brief because I feel Alec has covered most things there. I just feel this is an extremely sensible way to address the constraints brought upon us by the state government in these new steps. And hope that everybody can see the importance in supporting this. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this item? Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've just got a couple of questions. Mr. Mayor, through you to Director Watson. Just in relation to what's been put forward here this evening, first of all, sorry, before I go there, I think what's been put forward is a great attempt to hopefully that we can get the state government to look at what we're doing, what we're trying to do as a council in trying to work with this state government. It would be great if the state government was prepared to take that on notice and at the same time be able to pull something out of here that's been put up here this evening. That said, back through to Director Watson, if I could just get, is there any sort of issues you can see through from A to F that you would welcome or you would think may be an issue, considering that you would be the one doing a lot of the discussion with the department? Thank you.
To you, Mr. Mayor, with Councillor Smith's great preamble, I could hardly say I didn't like A to F, could I? Working on most of that really depends on whether the extension is granted, so I won't be doing very much or saying very much until an extension is granted, but some of the things the council has asked for are quite sensible. I mean, the policy refinement paper doesn't talk about the low part of the low and mid-rise at all, so the only thing we can deduce from that is that the government is happy, or the department is happy with the provisions they put on exhibition. And that was particularly in the low part of the low and mid-rise sector we had the most concerns. So Councillor Taylor's motion certainly seeks to draw those particular things out. So no, I have no concerns with what's put here. It's largely, well not largely, it reflects the content of the submission that Council made earlier in the year.
Thank you. I'll be speaking in support of this motion. I think it is a great opportunity for us to put it back to the state government, and hopefully it doesn't fall on deaf ears like everything else has. For those reasons, I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? If not, Councillor Kay.
I've just got a couple of questions. Through Mr. Mayor to Director Watson, just with the 12 months, is that a reasonable time frame? Do you think that that would be a rush, or I know we've previously looked at 12 to 18. Is that doable is basically what I'm saying.
I think the current circumstances would dictate, I would think, based on what I understand, a request of more than 12 months would be considered to be unreasonable. It's a question of, well, it's not a question of, it's about what we can do in the 12 months, but if we were granted a 12 months extension, we would do our best to put forward Council's best case. And in terms of the deferral issue, Councillor Taylor is correct to draw out that it was only mentioned in a press release. It was not part of the EIE that was put on exhibition. So while that, the idea of an extension or you know, the SEP not applying in the event of equal to or greater than provisions was very clear in relation to the Todd proposal. It's a little bit more ambiguous and vague in relation to the SEP. That said, there are a number of councils who appear to have asked for extensions to the implementation of the Todd SEP as well as themselves. So it's certainly not out of my mind.
Do you think we would have an expected time frame for a response from the department? I'd hate to think it just sit on the desk.
That requires speculation on my part. I mean, the policy refinement paper talks about acknowledging the need to liaise with local governments. And that is the form of that is simply the one-on-one hour-long meetings that have been scheduled over the last couple of weeks. It would not surprise me, though it would require speculation on my part. I would be surprised if there's any more consultation or collaboration after these one-on-one meetings. The Minister made it, I won't say absolutely clear when the Mayor asked him. Tom Looms in the Minister's office talked about implementation of this SEP prior to the housing accord coming into effect, which is the 1st of July. So there's not a lot of time left for consultation with the impacted councils in this matter.
I also just wanted to confirm, I think the last correspondence we had was that a meeting was scheduled for tomorrow, which is the 22nd. Is that still proceeding?
There is a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, but depending on the nature of the decision the council makes tonight, it may be that a meeting isn't necessary. for myself and the staff to put ourselves in the position of having to explain a council resolution which, based on what's in the papers and before me, is abundantly clear. I wouldn't want staff to be put in a position of being misconstrued or misinterpreted when hopefully the council's position tonight is abundantly clear and doesn't need explanation. But we'll make that call tomorrow morning, Councillor Tate.
Thank you.
If there are no other speakers, I'd invite Councillor Alec Taylor to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add that, as Director Watson rightly pointed out, other councils have been given more time to do this work. And for example, the Inner West, although they have asked for less time, and I'm surprised that they can fulfil all the requirements of the process in such a short time, we have certainly been advised that to do any meaningful consultation with the community, we really need 12 to 18 months. And as the Director pointed out, asking for anything more than 12 at this point would be viewed as unreasonable. So we're certainly asking staff to put the hammer down and do this work as quickly as possible, but we need to do it right. We need to do it well for the community, and we need density done well. Thank you.
So let's put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Next up is Notice of Motion 1, Marion Street Theatre and Linford Library. Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have a slightly amended version of the motion in the papers, which I sent to them today. This slight amendment picks up some comments we had at the public forum last week, and particularly the thoughts of Marion Street Action, and also some conversations with colleagues over the last week. Yes. In simple terms, the alterations to the post in the papers for the meeting simply add the option for council staff to consider other sources that council staff might identify, and also adds references to an arts and cultural centre after references to a functional professional theatre. So we should move that motion in front of us. Is there any need to read it?
So we're just waiting to scroll up. Okay, there we go.
The version on the screen is the correct one.
Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ward. All right, so Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say a few words. First of all, this motion is not a motion to sell the Linfield Library. Council passed that resolution last year on certain conditions. Those conditions may or may not be met, but that resolution is already in place. The second thing this motion does not do is pick a particular form of the redevelopment of Main Street Theatre. We have a report due to Council next month. We also have some very exciting thoughts from residents. We have a development application that is valid until 2026. So this is a motion that simply creates a narrative around funding, which we have not had in the past. This ties a possible sale, should it ever happen, of the Linfield Library after meeting other expenses, such as the Linfield Village Hub, such as replicating the current community facilities at Linfield Library site, and saying, to the extent there's surplus left over, we want the Main Street Theatre site, which should be developed to have access to those surplus funds. The second thing we're trying to do is to create a dialogue. I want council staff, I want all councillors from all wards, because this is not a Gordon ward issue, this is a Ku-ring-gai issue. In fact, it's a Sydney issue. I want all those residents who have worked so hard for so long to revive theatre at Marion Street to feel they have the support of council in engaging with representatives of the federal government and the state government, philanthropists, other sources of funding in the community. In short, anybody who supports theatre in the city to feel that the people who are supporting Main Street Theatre are supported by council. The council is on their side. We want people to talk. We want dialogue. This funding isn't going to come easily, and it's not going to come quickly. We want people to feel empowered. We've never before done this. We've never before actually given the authority of council to talk to other levels of government, to start the process of dialogue, funding and exploration. So I encourage my fellow councillors to support this motion as a means of really getting Main Street Theatre back on track after we have had a bit of a hiatus for the last year or two, but to really get full steam ahead. And I know there's residents, not just of this municipality but beyond, who are just as enthusiastic to really get things happening and to get some action at Main Street. So I encourage you to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Ward as seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with everything that Councillor Lannon has said. In addition, I think, this particular item has been on the agenda. We both have been trying for the last 2 years to try and get funding to get this project off the ground, so something can happen. Arts is such an important part in our society, not only for young people, but for people who are interested. But as people are getting older, arts is very important for mental health. And if we do have a facility where people feel empowered, feel like they can go there and do whatever they want to, or start to do some of the things that they used to do, would be a wonderful thing for the community. I used to sit on the committee of Marion Street Theatre for Young People. They presently don't have a place. They keep going from one place to another. And wouldn't it be nice for them to have a home? So the kids will go to somewhere all the time rather than having to look for different venues. I think it's extremely important for us to continue to talk about looking for options to fund this particular project. We appreciate the fact that it is a lot of money. However, I think if we have an appetite and if we have a passion, we can get it done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I'll speak to this motion. I'm in support of the motion, and I have been in support of this position ever since May 2018, when we had a similar council vote on the matter. Now, we are looking at a Ku-ring-gai that may potentially be very different in 15 years' time. So as far as I can tell, in 15 years' time, we may have up to 20,000 dwellings, additional dwellings, in the 4 southern train station area. And what I've been hearing from lots of residents is that they do want community facilities close to where they live. So they don't want to have to walk to the train station, catch a train to say Chatswood or Hornsby or even Gordon to enjoy some community facilities. They want to have something local to their area. So in that sense, Marion Street is a potential location for this. Now, on the topic of funding, that has historically been an issue. Even with the old library site, which I'm okay with selling in order to fund a new library, we've never anticipated that the full value of the old library would be required in order to build the new library. It's always been a portion of it to go towards capital costs, and one thing that I've regularly disagreed with off the record is the concept that the remainder of those funds be put in a bank account and the interest used to pay off operational costs of running a library. That just doesn't make sense to me. I personally believe that if you're operating new libraries for future residents in our growth areas, then that should be funded by rates, because it should be recurring rates that fund recurring operational expenditure. And we certainly are going to have a lot more ratepayers in the future. And if it's to be believed, then that means 20,000 new dwellings in 15 years, if that is to happen. So that is a lot of rates, that's a lot of developer contributions, that is a very different Ku-ring-gai that we're talking about. And in such a scenario, there may be more availability of the funds from the potential sale of the old Linford Library site to go towards other initiatives, such as something at Marion Street, but also for other parts of Ku-ring-gai. I'm sure there will be something left over. Now, I want to make it clear though that the Linfield Library site should not be seen as a single bullet, right? Like, it's not like you sell the library site and all of a sudden all the world's problems are over. For one, that's at this stage conditional on the old library site, the new library site being developed and built. And earlier projections would have had this at around 2027. Now I'm not exactly sure when that will be. So those funds from the Linfield Library site won't be available straight away. There are other sources of income, which is why we've added the words that there are to be other sources identified by council staff. was it may well be possible that they identify funds from developer contributions if the developer contributions plan is updated, or funds from rates, or funds from the sale of other assets, or other sorts of funds which we won't disclose publicly yet. But there are other options out there which may assist in funding the development of a facility at Marion Street. Finally, I know not everyone wants to hear this, but next month, from what I understand, there will be a report coming back to councillors on other options of how to make the Marion Street facility usable to the public. And I am personally of the view that if we can get, say, 80% of the use at, say, 40% of the cost, then we might as well do that. I know not everyone is in support of that concept, but we can't really comment until we see this report that comes to us next month. But we just want to keep that option in mind. So anyway, I'm speaking in support of this motion, then seeking other speakers. Councillor Kay.
I've just got a couple of questions. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Miosic, actually. Now, when does the Marion Street Theatre DA expire? Is it 2025?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, August 2026, and from memory, I believe it to be the 18th of August, but it's sometime in the middle of August.
Okay, just another follow-up question. So, what are the chances that if the Linfield Hub does not proceed, that the Linfield Library sale would actually happen? No, like we wouldn't be disposing of a library site if we didn't have. That was the whole thing. I could be wrong, but we sold the library to get another library on the hub. But if that sort of doesn't happen, doesn't this sort of leave us in limbo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, current resolutions, I understand, require that the Linfield Library site cannot be sold until there is a replacement library. We would be open to the council of the day to change that restriction if that was their view.
Okay, thank you. And just one, probably maybe for you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Corporate. We normally, like if funds obviously go into a bucket that the whole LGA looks at, I was under the impression that funds will go to the next project in line. Is Marion Street Theatre not the next project that we would be looking at anyway? So any excess funds would, obviously if we're looking at another project, is Marion Street not the next one in line anyway?
Well, Marion Street Theatre is not funded currently, so it's in the long-term financial plan to commence in 26-27, and the assumption of funding is borrow funds to be repaid from ourselves if council adopt that.
We can obviously change that.
Yes, that's an assumption, a scenario in the technique.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other, Councillor Smith.
We'll have to make it a bit more positive than that, I think. I've got a few questions first, though. Just, Mr. Mayor, through to you. Maybe to Councillor Lennon, I might put him on the spot a little bit. Just, we're using words of such of proceeds as necessary, any amount required. Are we interested in sort of tidying that up a little bit? It's just a very open-ended. The reason why I'm questioning this is because as the mayor, I've been on the council since 2017. The cost of this has escalated greatly over the course of time to do something. So I don't, is it something that we sort of look at? I know we're talking about options, but are we sort of just trying to tie up any sort of framework on this, or we look at tying the framework up later? Did that make sense?
Not entirely, no.
Okay, so basically, I'll put the question again. So, at the moment, we were talking about funding that started from, or what did it start off at? Approximately 10 million, and where did we get to now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, mid-20s.
Mid-20s,
And
okay.
that cost estimate would be several years old at this point in time.
Okay, so we're talking about possibly 25 to 30, we don't know, 25 million plus. So my question is that it's a very open-ended NOM in the sense of what the costs are on a site that we're potentially going to sell, which, you know, we could possibly put a $50 million theatre in, but whether or not that would be necessary. But have you got any interest in tying up a cost related to this?
Look, this isn't the time to try to do that. We're trying to create a dialogue. At some point of time, if and ideally when we do proceed to redevelop the Main Street Theatre site, we will have specific numbers then about what is envisaged and what it will cost. If and when we get to a point of actually selling the Linfield Library, and again there's question marks, then we will have numbers. At this stage, we just don't have numbers. I'm trying to empower people to think and to talk, and at this stage of the process, I don't think we can put numbers on. We just don't have it.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate that we're going into this with obviously with a very open mind on what it could look like and so forth, and looking further down the track. I will be in support of this. I was on council since 2017. This was a very important project that Councillor Shadow kicked on for quite a number of years, and would be very, very happy to see this council in looking at this, opening up the dialogue, looking at the costs, and looking at some way in making this thing actually happen. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting this evening.
Are there any other speakers? If not, I'll invite Councillor Lennon to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose I can only endorse the thoughts that we've heard. I share your thoughts in terms of capital assets should never be sold to fund operating expenses of any nature in any case. I see the Main Street Theatre as a project for the people of Sydney, people of New South Wales, and I look forward to a future. This motion seeks to resume a dialogue and to empower people to think and to talk. And I thank you for considering it and look forward to your support. Thank you.
So let's put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Next up is NM2, updating the Code of Meeting Practice. So to improve the accessibility and transparency of our public forums and take action on urgent issues. Do we have a motion from Councillor Kay?
So if I could move the motion, thank you.
So is it this thing on the screen now? Just confirming. Councillor Kay? Is it this one on the screen that you'd like to move? Or the one printed? Is that the one that's printed? Okay, sure. So moved by Councillor Kay, seconded by Councillor Greg Taylor. So Councillor Kay, I would like you to speak.
Okay, no worries. Now, today I'm proposing that we extend live streaming to include our public forums. By doing so, we make these important discussions accessible to all, regardless of physical limitations, geographic location, or scheduling constraints. This move will significantly broaden engagement, allowing more residents to participate in the democratic process. The benefits of live streaming public forums are enhanced transparency, open access to our meetings builds trust between the council and residents, showing that we are committed to transparency and open governance. It increases accessibility, Live streaming ensures that all community members, including those with disabilities or other limitations, can stay informed and engage with local issues. No one should be left out due to logistical barriers. Broader engagement. By reaching a larger audience, we can engage residents who might not typically attend council forums. This can lead to greater community involvement and input. It enriches our decision-making process. Accountability. When meetings are accessible to a wider audience, council members and officials are likely to be more mindful of their conduct and decisions. This heightened accountability can enhance the integrity of our council. Record keeping and review. Recorded live streams provide a permanent record of discussions, allowing residents to access information at their convenience. Reduction of misinformation. Providing direct access to meetings helps ensure that the information disseminated in the community is accurate and sourced directly from the decision makers. This reduces misunderstandings and misinformation. In addition, I propose we re-establish the option for community members to join our public forums remotely via Zoom. This inclusivity ensures that those unable to attend in person can still have their voices heard. It's a small change that we have done before, but we can make this a big difference in community participation. Furthermore, I propose an amendment to the Code of Meeting Practice to grant the General Manager the authority to call an extraordinary meeting to address urgent matters without the need of the signatures of two council. This flexibility is crucial for timely and effective responses to unforeseen circumstances. To implement these changes, it is noted that we prepare a new draft Code of Meeting Practice that incorporates this amendment. This is to be placed on public exhibition for 28 days, which allows us to gather feedback from the community. After this consultation period, we will review the public responses and present a final version of the new Code of Meeting Practice for adoption. In conclusion, adopting this motion will not only modernise our council's operations, but also ensure that we can continue to meet the expectation of Ku-ring-gai residents for a transparent, accessible and responsive government. By enhancing public trust and engagement, we strengthen our community and our commitment to serving its best interest. I urge you to support this motion as it represents a significant step towards a more open and inclusive local government. Thank you.
Councillor Greg Taylor as seconder.
Again, briefly, I'd just like to highlight some of the things that Councillor Kay has put forward. I feel like this will make what happens in this room and how the governing body is able to be viewed by the public more transparent, and that's hugely important. For instance, having webcasts so people that can't attend in person will be able to do that so online. So I'd just like to support this measure. Thank you.
Councillor Wheatley.
I have an amendment.
Right then, so let's see this amendment.
Chris?
Please read it out for the public.
A report be brought back to Council on how the Code of Meeting Practice should allow for public forums to be webcast and recordings of public forums to be made available on Council's website, issues to be considered including liability and whether speakers should sign waivers, providing the option for individuals to choose not to be webcast but still participate, and whether the webcast should be streamed live or delayed. Public forums to be always held in a hybrid meeting, unless the meeting is unable to be held physically in council chambers, in which case it will be held by audio-visual link only, and then B remains unchanged.
Okay, seeking a seconder, Councillor Ward. So Councillor Wheatley,
Yeah.
would you like to speak?
The reason I put this forward is I feel that council needs to probably investigate whether or not speakers should actually sign waivers. Also, some speakers may not want to actually be recorded, and therefore, as a result, I think that we should be either delaying the recording until the following day at midday, where it can then be released, and it gives the opportunity for speakers to withdraw whatever they want to have said, or they don't want that part actually televised the next day, is one thing. The other thing is that I also believe that by implementing, I think that this should be implemented in next term as well. So I'm basically requesting this report to be brought back to council by June, so the following meeting. Is that something that Councillor Kay would incorporate any of these things into?
I'm happy for you to incorporate that in your amendment and then support you on the amendment. But I just have a question just for the staff. Sorry, just through you, Mr. Mayor. The General Manager can probably answer this one. Is June a reasonable timeframe for you to be able to bring this report back? Or do we need more time?
It would be better if it was July, because the June meeting only gives us a week or so to do the research.
Okay, Councillor Wheatley, are you okay with July?
Absolutely.
I am. Okay.
You're happy with
that?
that?
Yep. So can we just change
Can we actually,
that
can we,
in
so
the...
can we actually put a date? That means,
Yeah.
in there. July.
Can we just clarify what the motion is at this point, please?
So the motion will be,
We have an amendment here, and we're adding the words in July 2024. So report to be brought back to council in July 2024. So that's the amendment that we are discussing at the moment. Yep. Councillor Wheatley, do you want to, have you finished speaking?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So Councillor Ward as seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have anything further to add. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Kay.
Just a quick question to Councillor Wheatley, just with the intention that when the report comes back, we can obviously look at the next stage of public forums to be webcast.
correct.
Yeah, I'm happy for the process to be done thoroughly, as long as people are comfortable with that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased about this amendment and very pleased about the motion that Councillor Kay originally put up. This is an area in which my view changed last Tuesday at the public forum. Councillors do listen to what people say at the public forum. It does have an impact. And one of our speakers last week acknowledged the issues with broadcasting public forum, and she said that you do not manage by exception. I love that line. I've been quoting it for the last week. And I think what we have here in this amendment is a chance to acknowledge the issues but still move forward with the thrust of what Councillor Kay intends. This is a chance to pick up a very good concept that the people want, but to acknowledge that there will be issues that we need to deal with. No speaker should in any way feel deterred from speaking at a public forum. The public forum is a fantastic resource for this council to make better decisions. And I thank every person who's ever spoken at a public forum and speaks in the future for giving us your time and your wisdom. And I do not want anything to in any way discourage any speaker from wanting to come along and speak. So the idea of the recording delayed until the next day, the right of veto to make sure that no person is ever broadcast on the internet without that person's prior consent is important. So I'm very pleased to support this particular amendment, and I thank both Councillors Kay and Councillor Wheatley for where we are now. Thank you.
So I'll speak in support of this amendment. So basically, at the moment, we always have councillors and council staff who are shown on the webcast. And to me, that's okay, because we are bound by a code of conduct. Now, members of the public aren't bound by a code of conduct, so there ideally should be something that binds them to set a certain standard when they make a presentation to the public. Now, the topic of social media has been an ongoing issue in the media in recent weeks. For example, we had a stabbing of a church minister happening in Sydney, and then it was all over X, formerly known as Twitter. And the Australian government says, can you please take it down? And X says no. Now, with these sorts of things, I do believe that publishers of internet material have a certain responsibility to make sure that the material they publish is of a certain standard of certain quality, it doesn't defame anyone, it's entirely appropriate, that sort of thing. And it is important to give council the opportunity to make sure that what took place at the public forum is appropriate before it is distributed to the rest of the world. Now, I'm also in support of making public forums accessible to the rest of the world, because it's not always possible to get here at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You might be at work, you might be in another part of the world, you might be stuck in bed with certain ailments. It's not always possible to do that sort of thing. So I think this is a good step forward. We are moving towards making the public forum accessible to a wider portion of the public. We are moving towards making a public record available, but we are also considering what safeguards should be appropriate. So that's all I've got to say. Are there any other speakers? If not, let's put this to a vote on whether or not this amendment should become the motion. So all those in favour, that is unanimous. And now that it has become the motion, are there any other speakers on this topic? If not, I will ask the original mover, Councillor Kay, to sum up.
I think we've had enough discussion and the points have been made, so hopefully everyone supports this, and thank you, Councillor Wheatley, for your contribution here. Thank you.
So let's put this to a vote. All those in favour, that is unanimous. Next up is NM3, Explore Regional Sister City Relationships. So, Councillor Kay.
I could move the recommendation as printed.
And seeking a seconder being Councillor Lennon. Okay, Councillor Kay.
Okay, I'll be quick. Okay, the opportunity tonight with this notice of motion is to explore the processes towards an establishment of a sister city relationship with other regional towns and cities within our state of New South Wales. Ku-ring-gai already has one overseas sister city partnership with Poziers in France. Sister cities share a vision of connectivity, mutual growth and enriched community life. I put together a proposal that not only reaches out to the heart of New South Wales, but also brings the richness of our community, Ku-ring-gai, into a collaborative partnership. Ku-ring-gai is uniquely positioned to engage in such partnerships. We are a community deeply committed to sustainability, with active initiatives aiming for net zero emissions and pioneering in creating climate-wise communities. Other sister city relationships that include metro and regional are Canterbury, Bankstown and Broken Hill, Albury and Parramatta, Penrith and Tamworth, just to name a few. What do we stand to gain? Through these sister city relationships, Ku-ring-gai can not only share its achievements, but also invite innovation and ideas from others. We stand to benefit from economic collaboration that opens new markets and creates job opportunities, from cultural exchanges that enrich our community's diversity, and from educational partnerships that empower our youth. Tonight, I urge councillors to consider not just the benefits these relationships bring to others, but what they bring back to Ku-ring-gai, and they strengthen our community ties. They enhance our economic opportunities, and they offer a broader platform for our economic and cultural initiatives. Let us extend our hands in friendship and cooperation. Let us weave Ku-ring-gai's rich tapestry into the broader fabric of New South Wales, showcasing our community as a leader in sustainable living, cultural richness and in educational excellence. I encourage all councillors to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Lennon, a seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to second and support this motion. Our church in Gordon draws a lot from our relationship with Poziers. It's, I believe, of mutual benefit. It draws upon history, it draws upon people today, and I think it lays the groundwork for the future. Our church also has a relationship with a church in a town in New South Wales, and I find that enriching, and I believe that it is also reciprocated and benefit to that church in country New South Wales. I like the knowledge we get of this town that, look, I haven't visited, but I like supporting it. I think it's to our benefit. I don't know where we will end up choosing, and I believe we will end up choosing somewhere in New South Wales. But I just find that raising our awareness and our visibility of essentially all of New South Wales through this one particular sister town or city, whatever it happens to be, is good for us. We need to look beyond ourselves, not just beyond North Shore and beyond Sydney, but throughout New South Wales. And I see this motion as a chance to widen our thoughts, widen our experiences, inform us, educate us, and I hope we can do a little bit in return as well. So I thank you very much for this motion. Very pleased to second it and very pleased to support it.
Are there any other speakers on this item? If not, I'll invite Councillor Kay to sum up.
Okay, well, thank you for your support, Simon, but I think we basically put our case forward. Hopefully everyone supports it. This is a good opportunity, obviously, to have an exchange of ideas and cultural enrichment. I'm very proud of Ku-ring-gai, and I think we should be showcasing what we do well. Thank you.
So let's put this to a vote. All those in support, in favour, it's unanimous. The next item is NM4, domestic violence. So Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is there, but I just, in addition to what I have there, I'd just like to talk a little bit more about domestic violence. We all know it's a...
So just checking for a seconder.
Oh, sorry.
So Councillor Wheatley. Yep. Okay, continue talking now.
It's good to see we've got a few people wanting to second it. It's an important issue. It extends beyond the immediate victims, affecting entire communities and perpetuating harmful norms. We really do need to explore far-reaching consequences of domestic violence. Domestic violence damages the physical and mental health of survivors and their children. The trauma inflicted can be long-lasting physical injuries, mental health disorders, and chronic stress. Within communities, domestic violence disrupts relationships. It isolates people from social network, making it harder for them to seek help or support. This isolation perpetuates negative norms and social exclusions. This is particularly prevalent in migrant communities, people from multicultural background, and it is so important to raise this awareness. The costs of domestic violence ripple through society. Police, health services, and other resources are strained by responding to incidents. Survivors may need time off from work due to injuries or emotional distress affecting productivity and economic stability. Children exposed to domestic violence are at risk of perpetuating the cycle. Witnessing abuse normalizes harmful behavior impacting future generations. In addressing domestic violence, we must recognize its broader impact and work collectively to create safer, more supportive communities. Remember that ending domestic violence requires collective effort and sustained commitment. In putting this motion forward, I have not been prescriptive in what I would understand as being required to develop and implement an action plan on domestic violence. But the statistic speaks to the urgency of this matter, and I envisage the action plan will be comprehensive. It will involve multiple stakeholder engagements, government agencies, NGOs, community organisations, law enforcement and survivors. Identification of financial and human resources, length of time to formulate, and a holistic and coordinated response. But I did not put that in the motion because I believe that will come out of the action plan. Once the action plan is developed, this will give the Council a clear indication of the financial resources that is required, or the people that we can work with. I urge all councillors to support this motion and stand in solidarity with survivors of domestic and family violence. Let us work together to create a community where everyone feels safe, supported and respected. Thank you.
Councillor Wheatley as the seconder.
This is an extremely important nom that Councillor Ward has put up. The statistics show that women, one female is murdered every 4 days since the beginning of this year in Australia. So it's a huge problem, and I think everyone should be doing everything they can to support this nom. It's a very important one. So we appreciate your support. Thank you very much for also putting it up, Councillor.
Councillor Kay.
I have an amendment.
Okay, let's put that up on the screen. if you have it prepared.
So just letting people know, just for the ease of it, I tried to highlight it to make it easy. It's what Councillor Ward has there, but I just think we can do a little bit more. So I do commend her on what she has put forward. But this just tightens it a little bit with a time frame and some immediate action with the $1,000 to establish a grants program. Oh, 100,000, sorry.
So for that, Councillor Ward, are you seconding or?
No, I'm not seconding.
Okay,
It's
right.
input.
Okay, so that's up on the screen. Is there someone willing to second it?
Mr Mayor, I'm willing to second it, but I believe I just heard Councillor Ward say that she's willing to incorporate. Is that what you just said?
Okay, so Councillor Ward, you're willing to incorporate these extra points into your original motion. Right, okay, then that becomes the motion as per clause 10.15 of the Code of Meeting Practice. So is there anyone, Councillor Kay, would you like to speak to this original motion?
Yes, so I'd first like to commend Councillor Ward for putting this through. It's a really important issue, and I know all levels of government are looking into it and doing their bit. I just wanted to highlight a bit about local government and where our sort of involvement is. I suppose to just limit things, the rationale, as some of our council staff would put. So when we talk about the draft, so B, it's to ensure timeliness, consistency and synergy with broader strategies, enhancing the plan's effectiveness and securing potential funding. I think with the 100,000 to establish a grants program, it's just initiating immediate action. It's always good to obviously put a budget behind something we're doing, and that is something that is recommended from local government. Now, I just wanted to quickly, obviously Councillor Ward did a very good speech and I thank her for it, but I think allocating the 100,000 to establish a grant, it demonstrates our immediate commitment and provides the essential support to local initiatives. These funds can empower frontline services and community groups to continue their vital work, expand their reach and innovate in their approaches to prevention and support. We also have local government can lead by example. So we've got, by embedding a gender equality and respect within our own operations, we can set the standard for our community. We demonstrate that these values are not just ideals, but are actionable principles that guide our decisions and behaviours. This leadership can inspire other organisations and individuals within our community to follow suit. Our involvement it can significantly impact prevention efforts. By raising awareness, educating our community about domestic violence, we can challenge and change the harmful attitudes and behaviours that perpetuate violence. Events like Domestic Violence Remembrance Day are vital in this regard, as they serve a powerful reminder of the issues and our collective responsibility to address it. And hopefully we'll have many other events also. In conclusion, our involvement at the local government level is indispensable in the fight against domestic violence. By developing a focused action plan, aligning it with state and national strategies, embedding gender equality and respect, marking important observances and providing financial support, we can make a significant and lasting impact. Together, as Councillor Ward said, let's commit to creating a safe, respectful and supportive community for everyone in Ku-ring-gai, ensuring everyone is living free from fear and violence. Thank you.
So I've got a question through me to the acting Director of Community. So my question is about question first to Councillor Kay. Just to clarify, the $100,000 in point E, do you see that as a once-off grant or do you see that as a recurring annual item?
I think we should look at it as it comes. Let's do one step at a time. I think it would probably be ongoing because I think this issue is ongoing. And I believe the 100,000, even speaking to community earlier, could give or take go either way. So it's an indicative figure.
Okay, and then my next question is to the Acting Director of Community. So, is her title Acting Director at the moment, or just checking? Okay, Acting Director of Community. Do you believe that, or what sort of measures do we have in place to understand how the $100,000 would be spent? Like, is it well spent, that sort of?
Mr. Mayor, like most other grant programs, would have aims and objectives, and they would have criteria for selection, and then we go through a allocation process, and we assess the merits of each of the grant applications that we receive, and then they will be reported to council for a decision.
Okay, so that's reported to council at the start for a decision, and then towards the end of the process, do we sort of have an acquittal process and reporting back to council of how it was spent at the end of the period?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we do have an acquittal process that's currently in place, and we'll be using a similar sort of process.
Okay, that's all I've got in terms of questions. Anyone else? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted clarification if the 100,000 will form part of that action plan strategy that we will have. So will that be in the action plan? That this sort of funding would be there when we develop them?
Mr. Mayor, I think this will be in addition to will be incorporated in the action plan, but I think that spending is in addition to the measures that will be contained in the action plan, and those will be costed separately and reported to council by August 2024.
So that's my understanding of the words, that an action plan will be developed and that there is separately $100,000 to establish a grants program, frontline services. Any other questions from councillors? If not, I would invite Councillor Ward as the original mover to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I've said enough, but all I want to say is this is an important issue. And I have to say I was surprised that Ku-ring-gai didn't have an action plan. I was more surprised that I attended a number of Remembrance Day services at other councils and we didn't have one. It's extremely important, and I think I've said previously, domestic violence is just not where there is a physical hit on a woman's face. It is also the cohesive control, and that is where a lot of the issues lie. And we don't know about it. We're an affluent suburb, affluent municipality, where we don't talk about these things. But let me tell you, cohesive control is a big thing in Ku-ring-gai. It's extremely important for us to have that education, particularly in the migrant community here. I know Lifeline has just issued literature in Chinese and Mandarin to try and educate people. So I think it would be really, really important for us to look at this and be able to give this important service to women in our community, which also will have a positive impact on the children. Thank you.
All right, then let's put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Next up, we have business without notice. Is there any business without notice from councillors about housing, about the forest, that sort of thing? No. So next up is questions with notice. So the first one is QN1. I'll just check with the general manager. Do we want to read through and provide an answer to each of these?
Mr. Mayor, they're quite long, so
Okay.
they will be available in the minutes.
Okay, sure. So QN1, QN2 and QN3, all of those will be included in the minutes, and the minutes will be available by typically Wednesday, Thursday, that sort of thing, in 2 working days. All right then. Now, there are no inspections, and confidential matter C1 that was already dealt with earlier in the meeting. So if there is nothing else, then we will conclude the meeting. So there being no further business, I would like to thank councillors and staff. I would also like to thank members of the public for their attendance. The webcast of this meeting will be available on the council website, and minutes, including the answers to question Q&A3, will be published within the next 2 working days. I declare the meeting closed at 8:27 p.m.